Hello, hello, hello. Really, really honored and excited to be here. It's been a little while. Really, like enthusiastic at the moment about YouTube and all that YouTube is doing here and all that you guys are doing on YouTube. As you come in, just say hi in the chat. Let me know where you're streaming in from, where you're tuning in from. Today is going to be a really, really powerful, potent, fun, exciting, deep, rich, edgy teaching. And there will be plenty of time for Q&A, and then we'll close with a guided meditation, which will blow your freaking socks off. So stay tuned to the end. And if you haven't already subscribe to the channel, that's really helpful. Part of the reason that we're coming on YouTube is to create resources for way broader audiences, right? We want to be able to be searchable and findable, and so that's part of why we're putting more of our eggs in the YouTube basket. And you guys help us build our channel, which then builds the expansion of the message by just subscribing, watching, engaging, commenting. So amazing. Yes, so let's dive into the content. The theme of today's live is all about independence, because it's July 3rd, 2019. Tomorrow is July 4th. And I just really wanted this year's Independence Day to mean something. Part of the reason that I think I had that experience is because when I was in Norway in May, I got to experience Norwegian Independence Day. And it was so beautiful. And I was like, I've never felt that way about July 4th. Like, I like fireworks, and I don't mean that I haven't had a good time, but like there's something fundamentally kind of absent or missing for me about our American Independence Day. And so I've been thinking for the last 2 months, like, how can I shift that? And so I'm coming onto this call, first of all, with just tremendous appreciation for our diversity as a nation and our size as a nation. That is part of why I think it makes celebrating any one thing challenging sometimes, because we all have different values, we all have different visions, we all have different dreams. It's part of what makes us special. And it's easy, I think, living in this country to see how many problems we have because of our racial and class diversity. It's easy to focus on the problem. Part of my experience being in Norway is that a huge part of what makes their culture so beautiful and rich is that everybody looks the same. Everybody like comes from the same heritage, same farmer background. Like, it is their homogeneity that makes them so powerful. And it is our diversity that makes us so powerful. So I'm coming in with that sort of generic American like independence enthusiasm. Let's make this Independence Day one that we can celebrate. And we're going to use the next hour to explore how we can use Independence Day to reflect on our businesses, to reflect on our spiritual practice, in particular in the realm of claiming our independence from our ancestral lineage. And when I was writing about this and thinking about this, I kept thinking about like the sort of metaphor, right, of July 4th as a recognition of our breaking away from our British leadership at the time. Right? And we were like, thank you so much. We want to do our own thing. Thank you so much. We're definitely going to do our own thing. Back the fuck off. We want to do our own thing. And so I think pretty much everyone in the United States has had some experience of the history, right? In school. That's a historical story that most of us learned. So you can reference back, like when you think about what you are currently wanting to break free from. What is the lineage that you've been given that has supported you in coming to this point in your life? Just like British rule and British culture, let's say, and colonialism supported Westerners coming to this land in the first place, for better or for worse, right? But we owe, and particularly at that time, like hundreds of years ago, this community that became the United States of America owed its place in history to Britain at that time, primarily. And right, so that we can come into this conversation about our own independence from a place of real gratitude and appreciation, at the same time as we're really clear that we're ready to overthrow any of the bondage, any of the chains, any of the obligation, any of the expectation, any of the assumptions about what we owe our lineage. You guys with me? This making sense? Tell me in the comments, like, as it can even just be like, like, let's make this a little, you know, Southern Baptist church where we got like the grunts from the crowd when the preaching is really good. And equally, like, you can start to bring in your questions now. If things are coming up that you're like, I don't get this yet. Oh. We don't have to go religious, okay? Just give me your comments as you're tuning in. What's landing, what's not landing. If anything that I'm saying doesn't make sense, I wanna know that right away. And just to be clear too, I'm gonna give this little teaching kind of transmission because there's some stuff that wants to come through for you guys. And then I will open it up completely to questions and any questions that you want to explore today, in particular about lineage and independence, but really anything is on the table. There's nothing that is off the table, nothing that's too private or too personal or anything like that. So great. So here we all are, like young little Americas, becoming more, seeing the potential for our greatness, seeing where we want to step out, where we want to do things differently, where maybe we even want to just do things on our own terms. It's not even about, it's not we want to do things like our ancestry or we want to do things different. We just want to do it for ourselves, from ourselves. That there is an ancestral lineage that we can build off of because we are, I assume most of you guys tuning in, American, that we can actually use the July 4th Independence Day energy to kind of fuel us, to remind us where we come from, to remind us that, like, oh yeah, like this whole breaking free thing, that's a part of our American tradition. This whole breaking free thing, this carving out our own life, creating our own life on our terms, that's actually part of what's built into our culture. Now, of course, you guys all know from experience that simultaneously we've got another program built in which teaches us the opposite. But today, let's use an approach to July 4th and Independence Day to actually support us in freeing ourselves. I'm going to read something to you that I wrote recently. And I'll annotate as I go, just like you know I do. So I do a lot of work with my clients around this subject of independence and what I call radical personal responsibility. And the truth is that most people have no idea what that even means. They think that when they start a business or become their own boss or break free from the system or create their own wealth, that that's what will make them independent. And in fact, that has very little to do with it. I would say, if anything, that's the manifestation of the independence. If the independence is there, you can see it in those places, but those things in and of themselves are not a guarantee of independence, because true independence requires a mindset shift away from scarcity, a willingness to break from the mental culture of fear and disempowerment that we have inherited. And the truth is a willingness to wage war. It doesn't mean that we have to, but we have to be willing to. We have to be willing to fight for our independence if that's what's required. If it is not, when we reach for it, ask for it, demand it, if it is not reciprocated, we have to be willing to fight. And when I say fight, I'm very careful about this concept. I don't mean fight with life, ever. I don't mean fighting with God. I don't mean fighting with nature. I mean being willing to advocate for yourself with such clarity and intensity that nothing will stop you. In particular, in your relationships with people that have been really important to you and may continue to be important to you, but that you're not going to let others rule you. And so oftentimes the fight is just internal, right? Like we project it out onto the people in our lives, but it's not really about them. Nobody can give you permission to be free. You have to claim that for yourself. And so the fight often is an internal one, a willingness to claim your freedom in the face of whatever inner voices you've got going that tell you you're not supposed to, it's not allowed, you're bad if you do, what kind of person are you? It's shameful, you'll be rejected, you'll be outcast. In our culture right now, the primary model for relationships is codependency. And as long as you're operating in that framework, you cannot experience real freedom. So when I talk about codependency, I'm talking about your experience that your choices should be informed by other people's desires. Now, sometimes I define codependency as using someone else's energy to do something on the inside, good or bad, right? So if somebody likes you, you feel good about yourself. If somebody rejects you, you feel bad about yourself. That's codependent, super like 101. So if you want to create real freedom, financial or otherwise, you have to be willing to shake up your belief systems about how the whole structure of relationships and the world is happening. When it comes to financial freedom, that's a skill. It's not a number in the bank. That's one of the biggest things that I teach people over and over again. And like their fantasies just keep coming in. That's another codependency. If I have this amount of money in the bank, I will feel free. That's not the goal, right? The stock market changes or the banks break and suddenly that money's not there. That's not financial freedom, right? Financial freedom is a knowing, a skill, an understanding that you can always provide for yourself. The nature of our connection to our families is another source of an opportunity for freedom, for independence. When you become an 18-year-old, you graduate from high school and are legally considered an adult, you are no longer daughter or son or child. You are a relative, you have a blood connection, you are part of the lineage, but your life is no longer dependent. And as we actually step out of the house, step out of the family unit, and create our own lives, it can feel like we're betraying our lineage in order to create true independence. And I can speak from experience that I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want to betray the lineage. And so even at 35, I was still paying, what would you call it? Like taxes, to the British rule. I was still giving like this power to the people who birthed me and raised me. It didn't even matter if they were asking for it. I was giving it to them. I was giving away my power. So that codependency runs undetected through our like basic wiring. And wherever that codependency is showing up, it is sabotaging your vision. It is sabotaging your business. It is sabotaging your desires because you are operating from a place of allegiance to something that's no longer in service or in alignment to what you actually want. And again, I'm not really talking about specific people here. I'm talking about concepts, right? Talking about dynamics, talking about energetics, talking about how you show up. The process of becoming truly free is uncomfortable. That's the transformational work that literally everyone on the planet is doing. Anyone who's doing anything transformational, they're seeking freedom, whether it's through therapy, through plant medicine, through coaching, through yoga retreats, through meditation, spiritual practice, through building a business, right? All of that transformation, it's all in service to freedom, because that's what we're all here for. That's what we're all here to claim. We were born into these bodies free. Then we grew up and we added on all these layers to help us understand the world and connect and build in some way. And as we built, we built in these layers of codependency. And then we learned to release them. And I would say that that's the process. It's a pulsation, just like the breath. So building a sustainable business, and I'll say more than that, because I think I'll say two things. I think that building a sustainable business requires that you break free from your family lineage. Building a 7-figure or a multi-6-figure or a sustainable business that goes beyond your kind of financial footprint, that requires another level of breaking free. And every time you grow, you give yourself an opportunity to break free from your family, from your programs, from society, from the limited beliefs that you've been given, from the limited beliefs that your little child mind came up with to make sense of what was going on. And again, just kind of this reminder that our nation's complexity, right? We are such an imperfect nation. There's a lot of amazing things that we've done, and all of those amazing things happened because we were willing to break free from British rule. We were willing to have that battle. We were willing to die for our freedom. I think that that's like, let's just go in there, shall we? Are you willing to die for your freedom? Where will you stop on the path? And I ask that question, right? Like it's kind of nice that you guys can't just verbally respond, because I don't need you to answer me. It's not about you don't have to prove it to me. I know what you guys are here for. The question, I think, is really the honest one for you to ask yourself: where will you stop? And we all have a stop point. So it's not something to be ashamed of or hide from. It's something to get curious about and know for yourself, like, where is that stop point? Where would you rather stay hooked in to the British Empire than step out on your own and really claim what you're truly capable of? Knowing, I mean, here's another like metaphorical tool, right? If you imagine that America, the United States of America, imagine that it was an entity of itself with its own consciousness. Imagine being America now, with its population, with its organizational systems, all the intelligence and creativity that comes out of it, and also all the violence and drama and harm that comes out of it, right? Feeling the whole truth of it, right? Like no blinders on. When you look at yourself as America from 2019, and you think back to a couple hundred years ago, I think you can feel how like truly tender the decision to break free is, because it's not true that when you break free, it just solves the world, right? America broke free and then look what we created. It's complex. So there's no guarantees here when you break free. There's no promises of like just perfect bliss and no contrast ever. In these bodies, in these lifetimes, there will never be a point where we become so enlightened that all we experience is bliss. That's not the point. That's not why we're here. The pulsation is part of why we're here. So you can have the pulsation in the context of family contracts that keep you limited and bound, or you can have the pulsation in the context of life on your own terms, where you're living exactly the life that you want to live and still experiencing those contrast moments. There's a two pieces that I want to give you guys that are really concrete, that feel very connected to me for this, and then I'll start to go into questions. The first is the idea that you are not meant to compromise. I want you to really lean into that. What would be different about your life if you knew that you didn't ever have to compromise? And not only that you didn't have to, but that it would be better for everyone if you didn't. I think about this in a couple contexts. The first, I think this might have been actually the first one that came up for me, was when I was teaching and then leaving teaching. And I felt this sort of, I was feeling some despair, really. What are the schools even doing? Are we helping anything? And I had this idea, I think it might be really helpful if everyone, just for one day, just did exactly what they wanted. Teachers, students, administrators, staff, parents, if everyone that touched a school for one day just did exactly what they wanted to do. In particular, come to work or come to school if they wanted to, or not if they didn't. I think the whole system would break. And then we'd see what we needed to do. If we actually gave ourselves permission, and I'm not necessarily suggesting this, okay, for the schools. I don't know what the solution is for the schools. I don't think anybody does. But it's broken, and it's not really getting better as far as I can tell after 12 years of working in those schools. Why not break the whole thing and start over? Why not see what people are actually getting from the experience? Why not let the people who don't want to be there not be there, and let the people who do? And then rebuild from there. How different would our world be if school was a place where everyone wanted to be there? Not everyone in the world, but everyone who was there. How different would that be? Because in general, I think that most people don't want to be there. Teachers, staff, students, parents, everybody. It's a drain. So this kind of radical no compromise came into my mind, then kind of put it out of sight, out of mind. As I left schools, I wasn't thinking about that so much. And of course, I teach that to some extent with my clients. But the truth is that the next place where it came into real clarity was in my relationship, where my partner and I, who are now married, really started to do the work to become unapologetically ourselves, to ask for everything that we wanted, to let the other say no, to continue to show up as the truth of who we are. In other words, to not hide some part of ourselves to make the other person feel good, to not engage in that codependency. And this is kind of the punchline of the story, right? Is that no compromise is the opposite of codependency. You want to break your codependency? Radically stop compromising in every area of your life. And what Shri and I are finding, my partner and I are finding, is that as we become less compromising, as we become more unapologetic, instead of kind of rubbing our knuckles up against each other, we actually end up really fitting together. It is our not compromising that is allowing us to complement each other more and more. And I'm very well aware that not compromising might have resulted in us realizing our little cogs, our clock cogs, don't really go together. So we're going to separate, and that would have been fine too. This no compromise thing, I think it's the heart of breaking free. It is the heart of your breakthrough in your business, financially and otherwise. So I want you to play with this. Get rid of anything that feels like a compromise, anything that feels like toleration, anything that feels like you're settling, anything that feels like, oh, this is not really my favorite, but I'll do it because yada, yada, yada. And really be ruthless with yourself about cutting all of that stuff out. It's not about cutting it out. It's about making it black and white, right? So you're either not doing it at all, or you are all fucking in, no in between. So that you're turning up the contrast on your life, so that things are either so clearly not for you that you're not engaged with them, or they're so clearly for you that you are like deeply, deeply engaged, deeply committed. And because what I see in a lot of my clients and a lot of people in my life is that like more and more and more of their lives is this compromise space. And then they don't even know who they are anymore. They don't know what they want anymore. The compromise, toleration, familiarity, that just kind of, it's like it's normalized. It's normalized. So as you look at your life, so here's the process that I would guide you through is to actually make a list of all the things in your life that feel like a compromise. And this will be a living document, right? You'll add to it as you go because you'll see new things as you go. Your unhappiness is a compromise. Your dissatisfaction is a compromise. Your bank account, if it doesn't have as much money in it as you want, is a compromise. Your lack of gratitude or lack of joy is a compromise. Now, then there's also like saying yes to plans with someone that you don't actually want to hang out with. That's also a compromise, right? But it starts inside. It's a very internal game. So start to make that list of all the areas that you know you're compromising right now. And then one by one, go through and decide what does it look like to crank up the contrast on that. So in other words, either you completely cut it out or you completely say yes to it. 110%, you're just all in. It's the thing that brings you the most joy, right? If you go back to the school example, you either don't go to school because you're like, I seriously don't want to be there, so I'm not going to go. No drama, no blame, no judgment, no criticism. It's not like, well, school fucking sucks, so I'm not going. No, that's also codependent. I don't feel the organic interest to go. I'm not going. Period, the end. Why am I free to do that? Because I don't have a story in my mind that it's right to go and wrong not to go. Right? That's where the freedom comes in. And you can come like all transformation, you can come at the change from an intellectual place and then take the action that aligns with that, or you can just take the action and trust that the awareness will come through. They both work. Action has to be involved in either case. Where you find compromises that you can't seem to resolve, you have a different problem than you think. So that's any nugget that comes up where you're stuck on something, you know, where you have like equal parts of you. There's a part of you that's arguing to stay and a part of you that's arguing to go, and they keep canceling each other out. That's a place where you want to really soften and explore what wants to be seen there, because it's deeper than what it looks like on the surface. There's something underneath that conflict that is waiting to be unearthed, waiting to be released, waiting to be integrated, some combination. So that's the no compromise teaching. All right. I want you guys to claim that, own that, rock that. It's a really good one. And by the way, this is also a practice. You know, it's something like I am still living this. It's not like I have no compromise in my life and now I'm done. I am constantly, every moment, every day, looking for where are the places where I'm still like tolerating a little bit. Where am I in compromise around that? Where is my desk space dirtier than I want it to be? Or messier than I want it to be? Where do I need to recondo that shit? Where am I, you know, like there was a period of time, there's still a period of time. I'm looking out right now on the Pacific Ocean. See, I can show it to you. So, right, that's my view. Right, I wake up every morning and I see that, I smell that, I hear that. There is never really a reason for me to not be feeling grateful for my life, right? Just because of that. Forget the fact that I also live with someone who I fucking adore, and I'm doing work that I am deeply passionate about, and I feel very free around my, right? Deeply connected to God. I can keep going. The truth is that there are many, many times when I get up out of bed and I'm like, you know, that's a compromise. What's going on there for me? Oh, it's just a forgetfulness. So that brings me to the second teaching that I really want to transmit to you guys today, because I think that this will help you move through this material much more quickly. Just slowing down and pausing so you can really take this in. My parents were therapists, are therapists. They're both retired now, but when I was growing up, they were both practicing therapists. And I learned through their example and training, explicitly and implicitly, that healing was something that was worth doing, that it would take a lot of time and attention, that like potentially decades, but that eventually it would work, right? Specifically therapy, but I think even just like a more general premise of self-reflection, right? Because they were both always doing their work on themselves, and particularly around healing their baggage from their own childhoods and with each other. Because they got divorced when I was about 13, and I think that like caused another kind of set of things to heal for themselves. Both really self-reflective, quite self-responsible, right? So I witnessed them doing that work. And so I came into this work of coaching with that paradigm that healing is totally the jam, and that it takes a long time. And that's just like part of it, that you expect that it will take a long time to do the work, to see the results, and that, you know, there's, what else are you going to do? So you just keep doing it. When I started working with my coaches and building my own business, I got a new piece of this puzzle, which it's been like we're coming up on 4 years since this started, and it's just now synthesizing, just now kind of like crystallizing in my own understanding, which is that when we are working to heal something that doesn't belong to us, it takes forever because it's not really ours. It's some of you guys know this character, right? So if this is the pattern or the program or the pain or the wound that we're trying to heal, when it doesn't belong to us, we're like holding on to it, holding on, and then like, with my will, I will heal you, you know? It's very, very hard work because this thing doesn't belong to us. When we recognize this doesn't belong to me and we let it go, there's no healing to do. So it's a real game changer when we take the time to recognize our lineage, our ancestry, what's been given to us. And by the way, whatever it is that we've been given, right? Like whatever it is that my parents gave me, it's not theirs either, right? So I'm deliberately using this concept of lineage and ancestry to go way, way, way back, right? Not to blame this is not about blame. You guys know that blame will just make you a victim. That's not the goal. So much of what we feel needs healing simply isn't ours. And when we do the work to kind of tease out like what's mine and what's not mine, there may be something that actually still needs attention in me, but that's very, very quick to heal. Just like a cut on the skin, that is not hard. It's not hard. So when you understand this, two things shift. One is that you can move through things much more quickly because you can recognize this shit does not belong to me and I can just let it go. The second thing is that when you see other people in suffering, you can also recognize that they are not, it gives you space to not buy into their struggle. And that doesn't mean that they won't buy into it. They are free to choose to buy into their struggle or not. But this is an important thing in particular for healers and coaches and people who are facilitating transformation, that you understand that no one is coming to you broken. And that you not just say that, like I think most healers kind of have that intellectual understanding, but that you deeply experience it, that the material that they're walking around with that needs to be healed is primarily not theirs to heal. It is theirs to let go of. It is theirs to give back to the earth and let the earth heal it. So now I'm going to go back and start to look at your chat here, and we're going to shift into Q&A. So if you haven't already shared your questions, I want you to write them now. Like, what is coming up for you? And keep sharing what's landing, what's resonating, what are you getting from this? But specifically share your questions. How can I help you? I want to really go into this. I'm so happy you guys are here. And again, subscribe to the channel, like this video, watch the other videos, share these videos. We want this message to get out to the whole world, right? We're going for big scale impact. Nancy, in the beginning, you shared you were raised in Kenya. How could you be wealthy when others have so little? And this is something that I talk about a lot and think about a lot. I had the same kind of realization. This is like the white guilt, you know? Colonialist guilt, we could call it. And the best response that I have for you is the metaphor of sickness, right? If I get sick, it does not help you get well. Me being sick doesn't take your sickness from you. So me being poor doesn't take your poverty away from you. And in fact, very concretely in my life, it is my learning how to create real wealth and true financial freedom that has empowered me to teach it to others, whether they're 16-year-olds that I used to teach algebra to, or my clients, or both. So that's just like that's something that you'll have to work through on your own. And I invite you to look at the possibility that little thread of fear, doubt, worry, contraction, that it doesn't belong to you. That maybe that's not actually yours to heal or figure out. It's yours to release and let go of. That doesn't belong to you. The story that who are you to be wealthy came from somewhere else. Hello, Ayana. Oh, I love this little conversation that you guys are going through. Yes, Betsy, the willingness to wage war. Yes. Ooh, family vacations. I've got a couple clients who've got family vacations coming up. Yeah, so this is really important. When you release your patterns, when you stop participating in the codependency, then you get to see who people really are. That's really, really powerful. And I can just speak from personal experience with my dad in particular, that I still have a kind of codependent, like knee-jerk reaction with him. And the more that I'm doing this work on myself, the more clearly I see that he is never participating in it. As far as I can tell, he's just not doing it. He may have done it when I was a kid, but he's not doing it now. He's done his work on himself. And so I get to see whenever it comes up, like 99% chance I'm doing it, not him. And it's really taking me like, it's a new level of consciousness to bring and really be open to like, who is this man? Who is this father figure that I've had? Because he's not who I think he is. So when you change your codependencies, one of two things will happen. Either you will see that the person that you have been spending time with and assuming and projecting and making all these stories about is actually free, that they're showing up in a very different way, that you experience them in a very different way because you're showing up differently, but actually they've been showing up this way the whole time, just waiting for you, right? You'll also see people who are still attached to the old role. And that can be really sad and disappointing because you want them to come with you and you just can't force it, right? Like the wanting them to come with you is also codependent. So you have to really free people to doing whichever it is that they do. And you choose. I am going to be free. I'm living this life for me, for God, for the service that's meant to flow through me, for the vision that's meant to flow through me. I'm not going to dumb that down or make that smaller or fit it into a tiny bite-sized box that other people are comfortable with. I'm going to be all me, unapologetic, uncompromising. Yeah, and you know, Betsy was talking about channeling Mother Mary or Kuan Yin, and that's so helpful, right? These sort of spiritual guides and saints that we have are also part of our ancestral lineage. We can tap into their energy as well. Another thing from Betsy, just about family members getting upset, and it didn't have to do with her. And that, you know, that I think that there's a process that we all go through with this. You know, sometimes it's helpful to like be in the face of people's negative energy and feel your own resilience and feel how you can be free inside that. And then there's another level of freedom that's also like, this is not for me. Thank you so much. I'm gonna exit. Like, I'm not interested in compromising my energetic field so that you can express your negativity. And that's just has to do with boundaries. So boundaries is another piece that's really important. We haven't really talked about that in this call, but just to plant that seed that you'll want to think about that as you go forward. All right, how do you break down freedom for people who are born into bodies who aren't actually free? Melissa, can you tell me more about that? Like, what do you mean born into bodies that aren't actually free? And Becca, it seems like you have some insight about that too. So share that with me. Yes. When you free yourself, it's not that you, just because I feel like we're going into the little nitty gritty semantics. So when you free yourself, you don't free others completely, but you free them from whatever hooks you've been putting in them, right? And then you give them, it's almost like you, whatever part you play in their lives, you give that back to them. Whatever part of them you've been trying to keep for yourself, you give it back to them. So you free them to have their full selves, to do with what they want. And they might choose to just like hook into somebody else, or they might actually choose to claim their full freedom. But definitely, if you are not doing this work around freedom and your own system, you cannot help other people do it. It's not just a paradox. Like it's physically impossible. You cannot help someone else with their liberation from a place of bondage. Now, you can be free in certain areas of your life and in bondage in other areas and help people free, right? So that's what frankly, right, that's what we're all doing. I'm not 100% perfectly free. I don't know anyone who is. But I work on my own level of freedom constantly so that I can open up the space that I can support other people with. And again, it's funny, we haven't talked about money that much in this call, but I just will bring that back, that our relationship to money and our sense of freedom around money is a huge area of generosity, right? That when you do the work that you need to do around feeling truly free about money, that gives you the power to change culture in a really, really big way, because people's bondage around money is so prevalent. It's so prevalent. Yeah. Yeah, right? Tiffany Johnson wrote, I love doing what I want. Who doesn't love doing what they want? Don't you want to do what you want all the time? I love that. Yes, Nancy, I know you are. Compromiser. So again, Nancy, the compromiser is this. You can give that back too. The truth of who you are is uncompromising. The truth of who you are is unapologetic. So you can let this, just give a little space and see what's the truth of the part of you that is totally uncompromising, has no compromise in her or them or it or he. Like, who knows what the gender identification of that essential part of you is. Could be very different from your actual gender identification. And get curious. Oh, this is so important. So Nancy, also follow-up question, what happens if you're called selfish for not compromising? What happens? You answer that question. What's the worst that could happen? Yeah, we're talking about radical change here. And part of the reason that I'm talking about radical is because we're talking about compromise. And if there's even a little bit of compromise, it's a compromise. So I'm deliberately trying to help you make it black and white. you will be called selfish, or people will think that you're selfish. So then what? Yes, yes, yes. Hi, Dorte. Tanny, you're asking, I want to get more clarity about your question too. How do you let what go when you're building a business to make a lot of money? Danny, you're surrounded by friends who are challenged in many ways. You love them and they are tribe, but you don't want to be pulled down by them. How do you keep them in your circle and uplift them as you uplift yourself? So first of all, let's go back to boundaries. Like you cannot do the uplifting for them. You can invite them, right? Like I couldn't invite you to my oceanfront beach house if I didn't live here. But now that I live here, I can invite you, but you choose to come or not, right? So that's an important just clarity. Like I think a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs get caught up in this feeling that they have to bring everybody along. And that's just not, you want to really interrogate where that's coming from. What is it that looks like? What does that really mean to you? What's the motivation? What happens if they don't? Right? So Danny, I would look really concretely at where you are, like, where do you see that? How does it show up in your words and in your actions? And then what would it look like if you were really uncompromising, just for yourself, just in it for yourself? Now, I support spiritual entrepreneurs. You guys are all here for service, right? So part of why I'm coaching you and guiding you and teaching you in this way is because you don't really have a problem focusing on other people. Consciously, you're focused on other people. It's this sort of like underpinning stuff. And if you really look like Nancy's question, like what happens if they call me selfish? Like that's a selfish question. That's a I want people to like me and think good things about me. That's not about service. That doesn't make it bad or wrong. We all have that. But let's just be really honest about what these things are. So, Danny, I love that your last name on YouTube anyway is also Dream. Like, what would happen if you freed yourself to just fully do you? And you had no responsibility for anyone else, not because you were abandoning them, but because they were already taken care of. What would be different if your whole community, if the whole world was perfectly provided for? Then how would you make choices? All right. All right. There is this ageless inner child and there is this conditioned one. Yes, absolutely. Skin color. Okay. So I think that this is, diversity. Yeah. Okay. So if we're looking at this from a spiritual perspective, all bodies are in bondage, right? Like this 5'2", brown-haired, sometimes kind of pimply, like white-skinned body of mine is not all the other kinds of bodies. There is a limitation there. And I feel like we choose these bodies. Not everybody believes that, but that's my point of view. So part of the reason that I believe that is because it makes sense to me on a spiritual level, but I also believe it because when I believe that, it puts me in a position of power, not a victim, right? So I was born a woman. Women have slightly less privilege, in some cases a lot less privilege than men at this time. If I feel like that was done to me, if I feel like, I'm stuck in this body, and I'm definitely, my height for sure has felt that way to me. People call me like sweet and cute and have my whole life. Fuck that. Like, that's not fun. If I feel like that is being done to me, I have no agency to make it how I want it. So if I choose to see this body as something that I chose for a reason, for my benefit, even if, now I know I'm speaking from a lot of privilege because I'm white and I was raised by well-educated parents who gave me a good education, all that stuff. And now I live in extreme privilege. Like I manifest the capacity that I have for privilege is now fully expressed. So I recognize that, and I still maintain this position that we We choose these bodies for our benefit, for our transformation, for our growth, for our service, and that any other body wouldn't do as well, right? And that doesn't erase or undermine the truth that injustice pervades our world and society. That's absolutely true. That's part of why I'm inviting you guys to claim this uncompromising, unapologetic stance, because that, in my opinion, is the most powerful contribution we can make towards changing the cultural paradigm. All right. Let me know how that lands. Blood money. I don't know what that, I mean, I can imagine what that means, but, you know, if I knew more, I could give you a little bit more clarity, but just with that sentence, I'm not sure that I have enough information. Yeah, Nancy, so if somebody feels mad at you, then what, right? So here's the process. Ask yourself, like, what's the worst that could happen? And then you take it all the way down the line, like, and then what? And then what? And then what? And what would be so bad about that? You can kind of like alternate those two questions. And then what? And why would that be so bad? And then what? And why would that be so bad? And then what? And why would that be so bad? Until you find the core of the issue, which is probably just that your little inner one would feel like she was being abandoned. And then you get to take care of her. You get to love her. You get to parent her. You get to remind her who she really is. Yes, of course. You may be ostracized. You may be. From that community anyway. So what? Then what happens? The truth is, right? I mean, this is such a cliche, but this is the right moment to say it. When one door closes, another door opens. Are you willing to be ostracized by the British government of the 1700s in order to claim your unique independence as the United States of America? That's the question, right? Let's take it back to the beginning. Are you willing to wage that war? Are you willing to cut the ties, knowing that people will die in that war, right? It's not like you get off scot-free. You just like make the decision and like it's easy peasy. That's magical thinking. There is a energetic exchange. There is when transformation happens, energy changes. You have to be willing to experience that. Yes, that deep abandonment, which is, by the way, like that's at the heart of all codependency, is a fear of abandonment. And then we pretend we abandon ourselves rather than be abandoned by the other. And we pretend to be someone that we're not so that we can keep them close and feel secure. But on the inside, the whole time we're doing that, we feel disconnected from the truth of who we are, because that's not who we are. And so we inflict our fundamental core fear on ourselves. Now, in order to shift that and fully approve of ourselves, claim ourselves through being uncompromising, choosing what we want with love, by the way. I'm not saying like that you go out and you're like, I don't want that, fuck you, right? It's like, oh no, that's not for me. Thank you so much. I'm gonna go do this. I'm not available. The people that are the best at this are the most loving, okay? And in order to make this shift from acting from a fear of abandonment to acting from a place of full self-presence, and I don't mean like meditative presence, I mean like being with oneself, holding oneself, you have to be willing to let whoever doesn't want to be with you go. And love them as they go. Oh, you don't like me? Okay, great. How fantastic for you that you're now being uncompromising. I totally support that. Oh, and again, that also doesn't mean that you don't feel the pain of it. Like, oh, I'm so sad about that. I'm so sad that we are not actually a fit. But more than I'm sad, I want to support my truth and yours. And if that truth is that we are not a fit for each other right now, okay, great. I say yes to that. All right. Tanny's question, I associate my ability to bring in money with my self-worth. I think that there's like a part of that that's true, and there's a part of that that's not true, right? It's like you are feeling the truth that you are capable of more around money. And that's just true. You have greater capacity, and there's a kind of like, what's happening? What's blocking me? What's like getting in the way? And that's a good thing. And what I would say is that it's pointing to you just are conditional about your self-worth in general. You use all kinds of things, including money, to make you feel good or bad about yourself. The opportunity here is to cut all those ties. I choose in this moment, I will feel good about myself unconditionally, no matter what. And when I don't, I will immediately look at what got in the way and I will pivot. I will not compromise my standards around loving myself, appreciating myself, acknowledging myself. Oh, Ray, I love that you're coming from Singapore and it's almost 2 a.m. That's amazing. Yeah, so Mia, like that money is probably not for you. Go make your own money. Renounce that money, whatever that money is, and go make your own. Yes. So perfect. What a good conversation. I love these questions. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. We're going to close with a meditation that's going to bring all this into focus. And we may go just a couple minutes over because I don't want to rush this process. So let yourself just move your body and make some sound, right? As we come into stillness and silence, it's just so helpful to come into it from contrast, right? So free yourself to be like big and make a lot of movement and take up a lot of space and maybe be loud. And then drop into your stillness. And feel the core of you, which is pure, undiluted joy, love, and freedom. It is the energy of grace in you. It is the energy of God in you. The pure, undiluted love, joy, free essence of the universe. And just take a couple breaths and reconnect to that part of you, however covered up it is. That is at the core of every one of you. And at some level, you know that deeply, or you wouldn't be hearing me right now. It might feel like a little flame in the center of your belly. It might feel like a column or a straw that's moving up and down along your whole spine. It might feel like your whole body is buzzing. There's a lot of different ways that this can show up. So just stay curious to how it is for you today. What images arise? What sensations do you feel? What are the emotions? What are the thoughts? Just breathe into this purity, this essence of you. Letting everything else fall away, everything else do its own thing. Breathe in the truth of who you are, the knowing of who you are, the presence with yourself. And breathe out anything that isn't yours, whether you know what it is or not. You don't have to figure it all out right now. You can just give it permission to let go. Breathing in all of yourself, uncompromising, unapologetic, knowing who you are, knowing how you serve, knowing what you want. No judgment, no shame of you or anyone else in that space. Just is. Pure power. Sweet, delicious, generous flow. And without any effort, the stuff that isn't yours can just slough off. Going back to the earth, back to source, to be recycled, reprocessed, it'll function to serve and nourish something or someone else. And feel the vulnerability or the rawness that may come up as you let go of some of these securities that you've built for yourself, so that you can feel the truth that you are by definition secure. You are by definition always with yourself and always with God. And so how can you ever be harmed, really? On the soul level. And bless everyone in your energetic field for all that they have done for you and all that they do in the world. Again, removing the layer of judgment or meaning making just because they are living beings, doing their best, continuing to grow with the level of consciousness that they have. And feeling the energetic circle that is the group of us that are here live on this call, all around the world, shining our light, opening our hearts, devoting ourselves to the truth, to freedom. And then finally, just feeling this sort of like gratitude for the lineage, the bondage and the freedom that we have in our lineage gives us fuel and clarity to break free now. And with that, you can open your eyes free. Open your eyes free. Open your eyes free. Open your eyes free. Thank you guys so much for being here. Again, it's such an honor and a pleasure and a privilege. We're going to be doing this every month. Our next YouTube live will be August 7th, the day before my birthday. And we'll have a new teaching and more time for Q&A and another meditation. That'll be kind of the rhythm and the routine. So subscribe to the channel, like the videos, let us know how we can serve. We are here. If you are wanting more, email info@jessiejohnsoncoaching.com and we'll figure out how we can help. That's all we're here for. Your freedom and the freedom of the planet, right? Maybe we continue to grow and expand in ease and alignment and joy and service. And enjoy the rest of your week. Those of you that are in the States, enjoy July 4th, hopefully a little more than maybe you would have. All right, guys.